Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to EduTALK. EduTALk, we're going to cut this really short, the intro. EduTALK is a weekly virtual talk show, and we focus on topics in education. And they're just two of us, our host and co-host of EduTALK this evening. You all know that we talk about educational issues. And so we want to feature Dr. Barker here, my co-host, actually finished the book, and it's coming out in is it in February?
February. The book is in production at the moment.
It's in production.
So, meaning that at the moment, the publishing house is proofing the work, ensuring that, checking for grammar, checking for structure, checking to see if the chapters are ready for production. So that can happen anytime. And then, while the goal was maybe February, it quite possibly could be December, depending on how long it takes to turn that around. So,
okay. So, guys, the book, welcome everybody to EduTalk. The book is Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. We're going to feature it in a little bit. So, Barker, let's start off before we dig into the book. Congratulations for the book. I congratulate you already. All around, it's very good. Very good researcher you are, too, and for pulling, and not just researcher, but also collaborator to pull in a lot of people together to make this book a reality. Because I know you have been talking about it for a while. How important is research in the Caribbean, in the region? Let's pick the Caribbean, for example, because we don't have a lot of research coming out of the Caribbean. How important is research in the Caribbean?
All right. So one, I couldn't speak on the volume of research that's coming out of the Caribbean. What I do know is that a lot of research that I've come across, the way it seems to be, is very much based around academia, because like many universities, the University of the West Indies is a research institution. And part of what the tenure in terms of professorship and holding on to your lecturing roles, there's a requirement that people would continue to research. What I find a lot is that most of what I have seen, and that's just what I've seen, is a lot of academic kind of papers, stuff that continue the cycle of research into research. And the practical kind of research that would maybe impact the country massively and impact practice in terms of, I think, in education. I don't see a lot of that. I think there's I don't know. I'm not speaking, like someone who has just trawled the database, but the reason why I say that is when I was looking at a potential research inquiry, I really struggled to find, research papers that were describing a Caribbean, Jamaican context in any way. It almost felt like I could research anything and there would have been a new paper coming out. So people might put me right, but the feeling that I had was that, was there enough happening? And a lot of it is still situated around university work, not people, researching or,
So do you think that people, because, we're rolling out a lot of college students, university students per year, and they go straight into the job market. And they have done a lot of papers, thousands. You and I have done hundreds of papers, all the way from our bachelor's degree all the way up to doctoral studies. Do you think some of those papers could have been made into appropriate publications for people to pull ideas and use as references in the region? Do you think they're suitable for that work?
Yeah, I think the rigor that exists, like in most of our tertiary institutions, is quite high.
Yeah.
I think it's quite high. I think, in fact, maybe higher than even the US, UK, because we're still on a kind of, you know, I think our universities do push for higher rigor, you know, and the professors are very much trying to hold to a kind of high level rigor. But having studied overseas, you realize that that rigor sometimes is constricting, you know, in terms of what people are allowed to study in Jamaica, maybe what people are willing to support. It's still very, I don't know, the practical side seems to elude the bigger, you know, the world output. But what is missing, I'm speaking here without, but we do not have the kind of entrepreneurship that exists in the US and the UK and more established settings where people are, and maybe because we don't have a lot of universities, but having said that, we do now have a lot of universities, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps, you know, like journals, I don't see a lot of journals that are being created within the Caribbean. A lot of the art, a lot of our lecturers are still trying to get their work published outside of the Caribbean context to make sure that they have work published in what is called reputable magazines and journals. And I wonder if there's a missing entrepreneurial side where someone decides to start their own peer-reviewed journal for the Caribbean area. I'm not sure to what extent those are existing outside of universities, you know. So that's something someone can collect. But there are in high quality stuff that's happening there. You know, it's just a matter that it also, like, for example, look at the book that I put together. I am new to international education. And even when I went into international education, I'm coming at a point where international education has been well established 50, 60 years before me, right?
Yeah.
So when I was doing my studies, one of the things that kept coming up was the shortage of research within the area, or certainly the availability of research that was being conducted within the area. So what you'll find is, I'd say most of the papers that were emerging from the international education sector would normally qualify what they're doing by saying that there's a shortage of papers. So doing our best here, right? No, sorry. So I'm new. And I'm like, how come no one is doing this or doing that? Because we keep saying it's a shortage. And I do remember while I was in my doctoral work, because we did it on a kind of cohort, and I remember talking to people and saying, you know, we should all get together and just publish all of our dissertations together. I remember saying this in like 5, 6 years ago to someone. I was talking about it and saying, because, you know, I'm thinking all of us are researching, we could all put our papers together. There's a book right there, a chapter. Working, did number of years and busy still. And it just came one day, I said, why not? Again, why not do something about the research papers, find what's out there, try and collate that, give some people something to look at that. They wouldn't be able to say confidently that there's not a lot of research out there. They'd have something. So the book really is an attempt to address maybe another critical issue in international education, that we're not really bringing that research into bite-sized chunks. You know?
I went to.
That's what this is really just me saying, I'm going to try and do something about it. Then reaching out to professionals within the field. I mean, this book began with 62 proposals coming in. When I sent out the call for chapter, I received 62 proposals. In the end, we rejected about 14 of them, left with 48 that were given the opportunity to develop their proposals into chapters of 10 to 12,000 words, research-based, you know, are certainly original research. And how many of that came through? About 35 submitted chapters. out of 48. And then out of that 35, when we went through the review process, only 24 came back out of that. At time, life allowed them to review their chapters and resubmit. So it's a lot of people, a lot of work, a lot of, but the book is where it is now. So, the book is fun.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the same kind of entrepreneurship that my point is that people might need to be doing and realizing that it's actually not so difficult to do that, The friend who inspired me to do this book actually is at the University of the West Indies, and she did publish a similar type of book about 2 years ago, which is what made me learn about this approach to doing the book. And then they say sometimes the best way to walk through a minefield is to walk in someone else's footsteps.
Yeah.
Because if the footsteps make it through the minefield, then you can't walk in the same footsteps. And I think in this case, I've done the same.
When I went to Jamaica recently and at a research fall conference, it's for research papers in the graduate program at the university. And the way that these graduate students presented their research, it's action research. It's very profound and it's much more rigorous than the programs that I've done in the US. And I'm thinking, when you were sharing a while ago, I'm thinking a lot of these student teachers, because they're teachers and they're upgrading their skills, that a lot of them can be engaged in collecting data. And even if they don't really want to analyze the data, somebody like a primary or a principal researcher could go do about the analytical aspect of it and publication for these with these practitioners, because they're in the field and they're working. And I'm extending it to look at this is just one institution. There are many other institutions right across the Caribbean to do just that, where we can create this periodical of research, maybe every year or every 2 years or every 3 years, to increase the awareness of research in the region and actually to use the body of knowledge to drive change, or even to use them to reflect on the changes that should have been made or could be made based on what people are doing. So what you're saying there, it does make sense to, if somebody else can walk in your footsteps now, through the minefield, that would be nice. The reason why I ask Barker, for us to start off with, if the research in the Caribbean, is because we don't see a lot coming out. It's usually the regular people, like the UNESCO or the World.
Yeah, you're right. We produce research from our content.
Right. And so we are left thinking, is this accurate? Or if this is going to drive the conversation on a different level. So I really like the fact that you wrote the book, and if it can, is there any writing in the book that is relatable to when you say international schools, it's a certain type of structure for schools, but can people, my question could be, can people in the Caribbean relate to the book, or the content in the book? Can people in the Middle East or in Asia relate to it?
Yeah. I'm sure in the table of context here, just add.
Wait, can you go back up and let people see the cover first? Because we just talk about the title, which is Handbook of Research on Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. All right, you can go through the, okay.
So the cover here, this is the cover, right? Yeah. It's a Handbook of Research on Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. And as you can see, This is a book that will have a number of chapters. So what I'll do is kind of briefly just share the chapters so people can answer, so I can answer your question, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one about
the relatableness of it in the Caribbean or wherever region. Because
let me show you what's in this. So obviously international education have its own, unique life, but and all of the papers within this book is based around the international context. But to answer your question, is it relatable to anyone doing research? Of course. For example, the first one is navigating the unknown, what it's like to lead a school, an international school, through COVID-19. Anybody who is interested in anything about leadership post-COVID might find a paper like this interesting, right? Leadership through critical incidents in international school, a study from across the greater ASEAN region. This is looking across Asia. Again, it's about leadership. And again, at this paper, the information in this paper, it would be relevant. That's the thing. This is looking at leadership. So while the context and is international education, normally if someone is writing a paper about leadership, the more context that they can pull to support or make a point establishes that paper as a stronger paper because the foundation is broader. So if you're even looking at leadership and you only look at leadership in the context that you're studying, then you're not broadening the work that you're doing. So yes, relationship between teacher empowerment and retention in international schools, that's a valid point anyway. Employment and retention is still valid, even though we're talking about international school, which is a much more fixed, a much more convergent context, international schools and the world, divergent realities. This is an interesting paper looking at, this is specifically about the IB and whether it's fulfilling its ideals as making education, more accessible, whether there's a kind of eliteness that is coming through from it in terms of maybe creating more divides in education. And then about the role that they can play in sustainability and whether they are doing that role in an effective way. So as you can see, a lot of the topics, these are about African Americans in international education, why so few choose to teach abroad, intercultural speak, and this is just a play on the idea of people talk about intercultural, and this author is calling that intercultural speak, and again, it's intercultural action, right? So they talk a lot about it, but are they really walking the talk? That's essentially what Dr. Huckley is talking about here. Teaching and learning, collaboration, effective teacher-student relationships, language policy. That's a key thing in international schools because language is a central piece in the sense that you have schools that are called English medium schools who teach in English, even though they are not in an English-speaking country. So the math, English, everything you go to class is done in English, even though the kids might be second language learners. So key thing, growth and belonging, talking about coaching, multilingual learners. You'll find a lot of papers around multilingualism. Lived experience of lower school students in virtual education during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's something that's relevant because a lot of when COVID was going on, even in Jamaica, they were trying to have school with students who were at home and lower school kids. And there's a lived experience paper here that would be relevant to see whether was that what people were experiencing, was it the same? I mean, it's an international school, so maybe all the kids had iPads, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you'll see some interesting papers here. Navigating co-presence. That's actually my paper. That's the one I wrote about faculty children.
Okay.
And identity construction in international schools. We talk about faculty kids where you have children of educators in the same school. What is the experience that they had? What's the experience? So your question, the answer is yes, there are a lot of papers here, you know. I had an interest in writing a paper about the international schools in Jamaica, but it never got off the ground. I might come back to it at some point to just look at the field and see whether there was
because there is an international school system in Jamaica.
Yeah, there is one, but it's trying to, I was hoping to illuminate it, you know, a little bit, so people would be able to add it to their context, into their research, because as I said, when people are researching, important that as they build like a lit review, that they're looking at the broadness of it, you know, like where are the different things happening, and having research out of Jamaica established that Jamaica has a space to do that. So I did have a look, but didn't find much. So I didn't bother with that paper. I went for the faculty kids paper in the end.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. Pretty remarkable, Dr. Barker.
So that's what this book has, and this is actually my price. The book is at $270.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at and thinking it's a little bit more pricier than that. So that's your price.
That's a price for me but if someone interested, I can maybe get that price for them too. You know?
Yeah. I think it's pretty good if we can get it even in Jamaica in some of the libraries there, university libraries, to get it there.
You have context for anyone. You see, it's a book, you know, it's a handbook of research. So in the University of the West Indies Library can have, because anybody researching leadership will maybe say, and leadership has changed significantly since COVID-19. They can then read that paper to see how it has changed, right? So while it's international schools, it's not a limiting factor.
Yeah, bound to it. Well, what do you find as a researcher? You're very natural at researching. What do you find that is it's a challenge in, you know, internationally gathering data? What do you find that as a challenge or an
challenge? Is less about, I mean, like when I started that paper, I just posted it on LinkedIn and all these places to get a feel. I had a lot of people who wanted to participate in the research paper, you know. The challenge is finding the time, analyze, conduct the interview, and then analyze the data. You know, that's a challenge because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Now, if I was working in a university where a requirement of my job was for me to produce papers regularly, it's different. But my job doesn't need me to write a research paper. So everything I'm doing is on my own, intrinsic, you know.
Just so on my own. Find time.
So I have to find the time. I have to also have the motivation at the time to do it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Dr. Barker, we're winding down. Talk to us about, because so this is research, and I mean, this is really profound. It's very profound. So as time goes by, we probably can pull one of the articles and rip it apart and see, you know, how we can use that and apply. The AI system, you mentioned something about AI, and we featured AI on this program quite a bit. You know, we look at the dangers of AI. There was Dr. Rowan Jowala came on and talk about AI systems, the benefits from AI, and also the drawbacks. And we have to be very careful how we use the system moving forward into the future, because it's learning. It's actually learning. Yeah, you mentioned also AI systems on here. Let me take this angle with us, because for me, it's AI, artificial intelligence is not 100% bad for me. I take it as an opportunity to advance our own network and partner. It's kind of like partnering with human beings. Other people might say, oh, it's going to damage human capacity and what we used to do with ourselves and our brains, we won't be able to do it. So we're going to lose that capacity and so on over time. Is that the case? That we're in a war with computers now?
I wouldn't say we're in a war with computers.
What is happening? What is happening with us?
We are at the point where calculators were introduced. And felt that the world is falling apart. Kids won't be able to add, subtract, and multiply. Calculators can now draw graphs and do computing capacity without, it doesn't affect certain things in the way that people think.
Yeah.
AI is an interesting thing that's coming in, and anyone who chooses not to embrace AI is running a serious risk. You know, and if you're in education, then you're missing out. You're missing out massively. You know, the way you're missing out is almost incalculable. It is a responsibility right now for any educator to apprise themselves of what are the capabilities that exist within AI to ensure that they can be more effective for their students. That is an imperative that teachers have to have.
So what would you say about a teacher in the Bahamas or Belize or down there in Chagaramas, Trinidad and Tobago? What would you say to that teacher who are having trouble with lesson planning, a simple thing as lesson planning, or even a store clerk who don't even know how to manipulate a calculator or manipulate anything because they're not sophisticated in their own thinking, where in terms of exposure. So we who are around AI systems and using these the chats and so on, or systems to create videos or to manipulate, to teach students. So you're on the edge of this change all the time. And people in education or IT would say, hey, you could try this in your school, you could do this. A lot of these people are not around the experts or people who are actually trying and doing and developing. What would you say to them when they say, well, I can't do that, I'm not gonna do that, I don't think that is for me, I am scared of it, let me go with my pencil and my pen? So yeah, what can you say about those people, or to them advice? I'm saying that you said that if they're not taking part, if they're not getting,
they're missing out big time.
Yeah, they're missing out. What do you say to them?
I did a workshop the other day about showing people how they can just take a normal lesson idea and turn that into a high quality lesson.
Yeah.
That's just a tip of the iceberg, right? You can use it to design an assessment, a specific assessment, and give you a rubric to assess it.
Right.
It's ages for teachers to do that. One of the reasons why teachers haven't varied assessments significantly is simply because the capacity in terms of time and resourcefulness isn't there in the profession on a daily basis. But if you can find a partner in the sense of AI to do that for you, then you can continue being effective. So the reality of it is that if you're not using that to leverage your abilities, you're missing out. You are, your students are as well. Now, but that's one stage. Now, a new stage has emerged now where they're talking about the bots, the GPTs.
Yeah.
And your GPTs are like apps. You can create your own GPTs to do specific tasks for you, which is powerful.
Yeah, that's really
so powerful. You have tasks that you would do on a daily basis. You can create a GPT that whenever you give it the prompt, it just does that task for you, which is massive, because imagine you being able to train your own virtual robot, virtual assistant, and say, whenever I ask this question, here's what I want. You know, powerful.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
So
the creation is being transferred to the user, to the human.
yes.
Instead
Yes.
of an expert creating.
Personalization, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
my job. What do I need? You know.
Right.
So they are bringing the up context into this now, but they're calling them GPTs. And you can design your own and let it do a task for you. And every time you start it up, it just does that task. Because effectively, you can use ChatGPT to do the same. If you give it the prompts, it will follow through and do it. But when you train one, it will do that task for you interminably. So you literally don't have to tell it each time what to do. Once you start off with the prompt and give it the information that it asks for, it can do it. That's a powerful tool.
Yeah. Barker, we'll leave it at this.
Yeah.
That's really, really crazy and awesome. Crazily awesome. We need to check it out. Guys, everybody, thank you so much for being on with myself and Dr. Megel Barker. Thank you for listening. We hope that you will go and check out the book. The book is called Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. That's Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. And it was put together by Dr. Megel Barker, Dr. Megel Ricardo Barker, along with his colleagues. Very good. We're looking for more from him next year. He needs to get some
more
and engage people in research. Like us on YouTube. Also, check us out our website at EduSolutions.
Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, subscribe so you get your notification.
And share it amongst your networks.
Yes, yes, indeed. So we'll see you next week on EduTALK. The website edusolutionsintl.org. That's edusolutionsintl.org. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy it. You only have one life. Live it to the fullest and try to do something good this week. Okay?
Same to you, sir.
Yes. Barker, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Take care, my friend.